another thing to be happy about. It's just crazy as an Australian fan. It's just too much, mate. It's too much at this moment. But let's get into the World Rugby ranking updates because there is some significant changes here.
Oh, yes.
Significant changes here. And I think I spoke about it briefly last week in the fact that this could happen, but we didn't actually think it was going to happen. So it's pretty crazy. But let's go from 30 onwards. So number 30, we do have Germany. In number 29, we have Switzerland. 28, Chile. 27, Belgium. 26, Brazil. 25, Namibia. I think every week, mate, I just try and come up with a different accent for each different team. 24 is the Netherlands. 23 is Russia. 22 is Hong Kong. 21, Canada. 20 is Spain. 19, guess who? Guess who, Hamish?
Oh, that's a good question, but I think I know exactly what it is. It is Portugal.
It is the Portuguese. Oh, my goodness me. How could you even question that? Number 18 is Romania. And then we do come to our first change here, and that is Uruguay coming from 16th down to 17th. Because of that USA win over Canada, they are now on 67.12, the Americans, whilst Uruguay is on 67.02. So not much of a change, really. Like, it's only 0.10, but in the same sense, USA, for the time being, does go above Uruguay. But as we're about to tell you, Uruguay and USA will play in the upcoming... do they play in the next week or so?
Oh, I think it is actually, yeah. It's going to be next weekend, or this weekend, depending on when you guys are seeing this.
Yeah, so obviously this is coming out Wednesday on... What's the bloody date today? It is Wednesday the 15th of September. So obviously, yeah, we're not too sure. But Uruguay goes to 17th, USA goes 16th, Tonga in 15th with Italy in 14th. Number 13, we do have Samoa with 12 is Georgia. Fiji in the number 11 with Japan in 10. Wales still in 9th. Obviously they're not playing at the moment, but it's pretty crazy that they're all the way down there in 9th. Scotland in 8th. Big boppers. Then we get to the big changes here, and that is the Argentinians who are in 7th, the French who are in 6th, and Australia has jumped all the way from 7 up to 5 above the French because of their win against South Africa. And that's South Africa obviously being in number 1, Australia being in 7. That's a ginormous amount of points that they can grab there. They did grab quite a few points. I think it was 3 points or whatever. They won 82 point. I think they might have been 82.9 or maybe 83.0 or something like that. And they were legitimately about 0.87 behind France and still also behind Argentina. With Argentina losing to New Zealand by a big margin, Australia were always going to go above them as long as they didn't lose by a big margin. And obviously they won. So they did also massively jump up above the French there. In number 4, we have Ireland, England in 3, New Zealand in 2, and South Africa in 1. But what's your... Actually, we should actually mention that too. South Africa and New Zealand are very close now. So South Africa were 94. New Zealand were 88, I believe. Now New Zealand are 90.31 and South Africa are 92.49. So there's only about 2.18 or literally 2.18 away from New Zealand over South Africa. So say, for example, Hamish, Australia gets a win over South Africa this week and New Zealand gets a win over Argentina. I believe New Zealand could go to number 1.
It could be very close because I believe that, if I'm not wrong, Australia may have gotten a little bit more of a bonus because this game was slightly considered, South African home game. So I'm wondering how it's going to go next week. I'm excited to see what South Africa do in that second game, but also, of course, what the Wallabies do in that second game, as there's kind of a lot of unfinished business out on the field between those two sides. And the reason I say that is, well, we are going to go into it just a little bit more later on, but yeah, it's going to be exciting to see these next few rounds of the Rugby Championship, that is for sure.
Do you have anything really else to kind of bring up about the world rankings there, mate?
It's just, I find it always amazing how much one game can change, like the teams right at the top. Because, I mean, we see all of those fixtures that are going to be taking place later on in the year with Wales taking on a whole heap of sides. If Wales get themselves a couple of wins, they will be able to push themselves right up there, possibly up to... Because, I mean, we mentioned it very late on our last podcast. I asked you the question of where do you see Australia ranked at the end of the year? And do you remember what number you said that they were going to be?
I can't remember. Did I say 5th?
I believe I asked the question of do you think they'll be top 5? And I think you said that it may have been a little bit questionable whether or not they would be able to do so. But let's just say, theoretically, if they get another win over South Africa somehow this weekend, then they could really push themselves towards that top 3. They're only about 1 point.
If they beat South Africa this weekend, they probably will go above, or they will go above Ireland.
Yeah, and then
I don't
England.
think they have enough to go above England, though.
No, it would have to be a big win for them
It would
to be
have
able
to
to
be a
do that.
significant win because obviously it is now technically a home game. It's at Suncorp Stadium too, which is a death trap for literally opposition. So I'm not too sure, man. But Australia right now, if they are to beat South Africa, yeah, they would have a genuine chance of potentially going above England into third positioning, which is crazy. But as you said, we do have that end of year Wales up there in the Northern Hemisphere. Plus, we also play Scotland as well. It's not just Wales, it's Scotland up there as well. Don't forget about them. I don't know if we play England, though. Do we play England? Do you know?
I think you do, if I'm not wrong. England, actually, there's a day that I am looking forward to big time. And the fixtures that are happening back to back to back is first game Springboks versus England, which is an absolutely huge one, of course, with the Rugby World Cup final. Then the second game is Wales versus Australia, which I know we've seen quite a few times, but I still enjoy seeing that fixture every time.
We see that every single 4 years.
Yeah, but you always say about this position that Wales are at the moment in terms of their rugby. So I'd love to see how the Wallabies match up to a side like Wales. They both start with W as well. What a bonus that is, of course, because one of them's going to get that W and one of them, unfortunately, will it be getting that loss?
Both start with a W?
Yeah, Wales and the Wallabies, mate.
Oh my God! I was thinking Wales and Australia. I was like, I don't know what planet you're living on with the A being a W, but you know.
Nah, go with the good old name of the Wallabies. Of course, that is the name that everyone has been throwing around this week with that previous result. It's been the
Wallabies for a very long time.
Yeah, but like the name, it's starting to get out there a little bit more. You know, Wallabies beating the Springboks is absolutely huge.
Bloody Kiwis! Well. Now it's starting to get out there a little bit more, like as if we haven't still won 2 World Cups in our bloody history.
But you literally every podcast say that Australians don't care about rugby.
Hey, listen here, man, I do, all right? And you're talking to me, so I'm still going to bite back. You know what? If anyone's going to insult the Wallabies, it's going to be me. It's not going to be you, and it's not going to be anybody else. You can't insult the Wallabies. I can insult the Wallabies, though. Don't you damn well worry about that. But look, I think that's going to do us for the World.
I still got one more fixture.
What?
That's the second one.
Oh, is it New Zealand versus Scotland?
New Zealand versus France.
Ooh, that's cheeky.
Yeah. So that is a good round indeed. But now back to you in the studio.
Thanks, mate. We'll go back to me in the studio. So let's move on. Obviously, that was the World Rugby ranking update.